Episode 2 of the Supermoon Grimoire breakdown, bigger by the pound, y'all. And we're going to talk about the Inflated King archetype and the Waxing Crescent Moon phase to go along with bigger by the pound. Here we go. So, the warrior declared himself. He raised his voice, he laid his arrows in the dirt. Very noble, very meaningful. And then the ego showed up. And the ego said, yeah, that was cool, but let's get bigger. That's bigger by the pound. That's exactly what this song is. It's the moment where the healthy declaration tips into something else, where the growth stops being about purpose and starts being about more weight, more gold, more pound, more ounce, just more. And the thing is, it feels incredible. That's why this song has that energy. That's why it riffs the way it does. That's why there's harmonica. That's why there's so much exploitation of the Crobot sound, because the inflation feels like power. It feels like you're winning. It doesn't feel like a problem until you're already deep inside it, right? Now, bigger by the pound, when writing this, what I thought I was writing was just a straight up banger, taking from Monster Magnet, and I had this vision of a pimp that was a preacher, and listen, it's a banger, and there's no apology for that, but underneath the banger is this thread of, I don't know how else to say it, but this cosmic sarcasm. The song is almost celebrating something and critiquing it simultaneously, more to the ounce and bigger by the pound. This ain't a weight you can just put down. That's not triumph, that's a warning, dressed as a chorus. Now, where the song came from, again, I said I had this envisionment of, exploitation in a weird way, and growing gold in my veins, Mercury in my brain. Let's talk about those two images because they're truthfully the engine of this song. And a lot of the breakdown goes into the alchemical process of individuation, and that's what all of this is about, gold in the veins. The alchemical image of wealth, of divine substance, of the thing you've been working for finally flowing through you, the philosopher's stone, right? Now, gold was this great obsession of the alchemists, chasing that, not just as a metal, but as a symbol. Gold meant perfection. Gold meant the highest possible refinement of matter. And here it is, coursing through the blood. You're becoming it. You are it. Now, Mercury in the brain. Mercury, also called quicksilver, was the alchemist's symbol for the mind, for intelligence, for that quick, slippery, brilliant quality of thought that moves too fast to catch the quip. The alchemist, Hermes Trismegistus, the patron of the whole tradition, was associated with Mercury. It represents the mind at its peak, fast, sharp, electric. But here's the thing about Mercury. The real thing about Mercury is the element, it's poison. In small doses, it makes you feel sharp and alive. In large doses, it destroys your nervous system. And the alchemists, they didn't know that. They didn't know about the balance. Now, some of them literally poisoned themselves chasing transcendence. And that's this song. In your veins, in your blood, the two substances that represent your most elevated self, gold and Mercury. Both of them are also capable of killing you if the balance tips. Still I shake heavy chains and smile a mile right through the strain. You're growing and you're carrying the weight of that growth. And you're smiling all the while because you don't want anyone to see the strain. That's inflation. That's the Inflated King. Now, the Inflated King is the shadow archetype of what we're talking about today. And in Jungian psychology, the king archetype represents order, structure, the capacity to organize your inner world, your thoughts, your emotions, your drives into something functional and purposeful. The king is the part of you that can hold the center, that can make decisions, that can lead. Now in tarot, the king corresponds to the emperor, major arcana, card number 4. And the emperor is magnificent. He sits on his throne, he wears his armor, he holds his power like a man who was born into it. He represents authority that's been earned, structure that serves life. And there's a shadow to every archetype. So, shadow of the king is inflation. Inflation, in psychological terms, is what happens when the ego over-identifies with an archetype. When instead of the king expressing himself through you, you start believing you are the king, that your authority is absolute, that your vision is the only correct vision, that growth is always good and more is always better. The inflated king starves people. That's what Starve Tomorrow of Old Sounds is about. The inflated person, the person who's only chasing the next level of more, stops being able to hear the things that don't serve the growth. He gets rigid. He loses his ability to receive input, to change course, and to be wrong. Now, sometimes we have a problem with being wrong, I myself included. And his mistakes rather, are his crown or his identity. You want salvation, that costs sweat. You want freedom, you ain't paid yet. This is the inflated king's philosophy. Salvation is transactional. Freedom is earned through suffering. And there's a little bit of truth in that. Real growth does cost something, but the inflated king takes it too far. He turns it into a system where you're never enough. You're never paid enough. The crown is always one more sacrifice away. And then she appears, the witch. Met a witch who saved her cries to drown the sun in goodbyes. Then the spell fell out of her mouth. You got that fire, but you're burning out. The witch, the truth teller, the one who's been carrying her own grief, her own knowing. And when the moment is right, when you're deep enough in the inflation to actually need it, she opens her mouth and the spell falls out. You got that fire, but you're burning out. Fire is real. The burning out is also real. These aren't contradictions. They're the same reality, right? They're seen through two different angles. And the only reason that the witch can see it is because she's outside of the inflation. She's not inside your story. She can see the shape of it. Who's the witch in your life? Who's the person, or maybe the experience or diagnosis or moment of silence that has ever said the true thing to you when you were too deep in your own momentum to hear it? And where are you chasing more instead of meaning? Another one of the shadow prompts in the Grimoire here. Now, let's talk a little bit about the lunar phase, because the waxing crescent is what aligns with Bigger by the Pound, and the waxing crescent is the first sliver of light after the new moon. The growth is the beginning, right? It's visible for the first time, and it feels good. It's supposed to feel good. The light returning is meant to be hopeful. But the question the waxing crescent always asks is, what are you growing toward? Are you growing toward meaning, or are you just growing? Now, back to the prompt section attached to Bigger by the Pound, the ritual prompt and the shadow prompts. Again, let's ask ourselves, where are you chasing more in terms of quantity instead of meaning or quality? Not where do you want more? We all want more of something. The question is whether the more you're chasing is actually connected to what matters to you, or whether you've been running so long that you forgot why you started in the first place. So, next question asks, what am I trying to prove? And to who? Now, this one changes when the person you've been trying to prove something to is gone, or was never really watching in the first place, or never needed the proof to begin with. So, who is the audience for your hustle? And if they disappeared tomorrow, would you still be doing this? Now, that's a real meaningful question. And the ritual for this track is make a list. Everything you're currently building, chasing, working towards, everything you're accumulating, experiences, credentials, followers, money, muscle, whatever your version is, write it down and take a look at each item and ask honestly, is this rooted in truth or just in validation? Do I really want to do this, or am I doing this because I want to be seen in a certain light? Cross out the ones that are only there to prove something to someone that isn't yourself. And what's left is yours. Now, the ego inflated. The witch told you the truth. The bridge of this song, I will follow you through blackened blindness. Give me your glow, and I'll get you back, is the first crack in the armor. And it's a little bit of play on words. It's as if to say, let me borrow your glow and I'll get you back down the road. But the first moment of surrender is inside the inflation now. But the crack has to get bigger before anything real can come through. The dark night of the soul, right? Next song, gun to my head, the crack arrives. So I'll see you on episode 3, gun to my head of the Supermoon Grimoire Breakdown.